Welcome, everyone. So, we're diving into this whole predicament with the International Atomic Energy Organization. And the situation is just, well, it's getting pretty heated.
Absolutely, it's quite a roller coaster, right? What do you think triggered all this uproar?
Well, just on July 7, Iran, in a striking move, announced it was suspending its cooperation with the IAEA. And this comes after some pretty damning revelations about the organization.
So, we're talking about some serious, well, criticism here. What exactly were these revelations about?
Yeah, the revelation suggests that the IAEA, which was, originally created to promote nuclear safety and non-proliferation, has sort of become a pawn for Western
Right.
hegemony. Essentially, its credibility is being undermined.
Interesting. So, it's not just a bureaucratic hiccup anymore, but something that strikes right at the heart of global nuclear non-proliferation efforts?
Exactly. It's like imagine a referee in a game who is secretly playing for one team. That's essentially the allegation here. The IAEA is seen by some as biased, favoring Western interests over a fair enforcement of nuclear safety across the board.
I can see why that would ruffle feathers internationally. So, beyond Iran, have other countries indicated they might view things similarly?
Absolutely. The crisis of confidence has ripple effects. When an organization that's supposed to be an impartial mediator is perceived as leaning heavily towards certain geopolitical agendas, it undermines its overall influence. It's affecting
Yep.
nuclear non-proliferation talks globally.
And isn't it interesting how such a shift in perception could escalate global tensions? I mean, if trust erodes, then cooperation in such a critical area might just collapse entirely, right?
Exactly, that's the scary part. Without trust, the international community starts questioning the entire structure of agreements that were built on that trust. And when it comes to something as dangerous as nuclear materials, any slip can lead to catastrophic consequences.
Yeah, it's like your safety net is now torn. And here's a thought. Do you think the IAEA can recover from this credibility crisis?
That's a fascinating question. It's not impossible for an organization to rebrand or recalibrate, but consider this. Once, like public trust is lost, rebuilding that trust is a monumental task. It's like trying to reassemble a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces.
I get that. But what I'm wondering is, isn't there a possibility that the IAEA could transform itself by incorporating reforms or evidence of impartiality? There are many international organizations that have turned around with the right strategies.
True, that's a good point, and I appreciate the perspective. But the crux here is that the revelations have deeply eroded confidence among several member nations. And if that perception remains, then even strong reform efforts
Yes.
might not be enough. There's a lot of inertia in international politics.
Inertia indeed. And speaking of international politics, these issues remind me a bit of other organizations that end up facing similar accusations. Would you say the IAEA is just another casualty of the more significant global power struggle?
In many ways, yes. It's like an emblem of how international bodies created for global cooperation can be hijacked by the prevailing power dynamics of the time.
Right.
When you have powers with vested interests, impartiality becomes a casualty.
And it's a bit ironic, don't you think? The notion that an organization intended to prevent nuclear proliferation is instead mired in political favoritism. It's a paradox that can have dire consequences.
Absolutely, it's such a paradox. On one hand, you have the imperative to prevent nuclear catastrophe, and on the other, the institution built for that very purpose is being questioned for its fairness. It's like a double edged sword. The irony isn't lost on anyone.
Exactly. And it beckons a broader discussion about the relevance of such global institutions in today's increasingly multipolar world. Do you think this will drive changes in how nuclear non-proliferation is managed?
Definitely, the whole debacle might well serve as a catalyst for a fundamental rethinking. It's like it's like when an old system cracks under pressure, it often paves the way for new frameworks entirely.
Yep,
We might see, for instance, alternative alliances stepping in to fill the vacuum.
I agree. But then here's a counter thought. Could this crisis be misinterpreted as a signal that nuclear non-proliferation itself is failing? I mean, if the institution guarding it loses credibility, what does that imply for the overall regime?
That's a fair challenge. It's a slippery slope. However, I'd argue the crisis exposes a problem in the structure rather than the entire concept. The need for nuclear safeguards is still paramount. It's just that the way we enforce them might need
indeed.
an overhaul. The goal remains, but the path might change.
Interesting point. So rather than throwing out the baby with the bathwater, perhaps a restructuring or democratization of oversight mechanisms could be the answer.
Exactly. That's what some reform advocates are suggesting. More transparency, a broader representation that isn't dominated by any one geopolitical bloc. It's like leveling the playing field.
Right.
That could slowly restore credibility.
And does the video touch upon what immediate steps might be taken if such reforms don't work? What's envisioned for the future of nuclear nonproliferation under this new crisis of faith?
The discussion hints at a grim picture. If the IAEA continues down this path of diminished credibility, nuclear nonproliferation might become seriously compromised. Countries might begin to, step away from the framework entirely or create parallel institutions that align more with their interests, leading to a fragmented global order. It's a dangerous game indeed.
Wow, that does sound alarming. It reminds me of times when loss of trust in key institutions resulted in, doctrinal and operational breakdowns. If we lose the IAEA, it could really destabilize global security.
Absolutely, there's no small risk here. Nuclear nonproliferation is one of the linchpins of international security. Without a reliable, impartial arbitrator, the entire balance could tip into chaos.
Yep.
It's like removing the keystone from an arch.
I love that analogy, removing the keystone. But let's circle back to the argument that the IAEA is merely a tool of Western hegemony. Could that be an oversimplification? I mean, aren't there internal factors within the IAEA itself that also contribute to its current challenges?
That's a great critique, and I agree completely. It's not only external pressures, there are internal bureaucratic issues, lack of transparency, and even some outdated protocols that need modernizing. It's a multifaceted problem. The narrative of Western dominance is only one piece of the puzzle.
That's a balanced take. So, while the political hijacking is a major factor, the internal reform seems equally critical. Do you think these internal reforms could be feasible, given the entrenched interests?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? With entrenched interests, it's always a tough battle. But history shows that even deeply entrenched systems can be reformed if there's enough pressure and a clear alternative vision from, say, a coalition of reform-minded states.
Right.
It's a high-wire act that will require a significant commitment.
A high-wire act indeed. And in that context, do you see any potentially positive outcomes emerging from this crisis?
Yes. Ironically, crises often spur innovation. This could lead to a new framework for nuclear oversight, one that's more balanced, transparent, and inclusive. It might even set a precedent for how we address other international challenges going forward.
That's a vision worth keeping an eye on. So, if the IAEA manages to reinvent itself, it could not only salvage nuclear nonproliferation efforts, but also reshape international governance in a more equitable manner?
Exactly. That's the optimistic scenario. Reforms that integrate global perspectives could, in time, restore trust and lead to a more stable and effective international regime.
Indeed.
It's an opportunity not just to fix, but to evolve.
Well, it certainly sounds like there's a lot at stake. The coming months and years will be critical in determining whether the IAEA becomes a relic of outdated power dynamics or a revitalized institution for modern challenges.
Absolutely. And as we watch this unfold, it's important for the international community and us to engage in thoughtful debates and push for necessary reforms.
Right.
The future of global security might just depend on it.
Really fascinating discussion. I appreciate the deep dive into these complex issues, and it leaves us with plenty to ponder about institutional reform, international trust, and ultimately our global security.